In this video, we're going to take a look at activity 3.2.4, when is good enough? Here we're going to focus on steps 11 through 16, and mainly this video is going to focus on how to perform the Excel operations that we're going to have from the manufacturing data spreadsheet that's being provided. So it will provide an original data set that has some information such as the calculated sample mean, sample standard deviation, and frequency histogram. And for this activity, they want us to utilize the test tab and be able to do the exact same operations as the original data, calculating the sample mean, sample standard deviation, and constructing a histogram, and then making a comparison of whether or not the optimization methods used were actually successful. In order to do that, we're going to download the manufacturing data file, and I've already have this downloaded in Excel. By default, down here are the two tabs. We have two sheets. One is the test sheet. If I click on the word original, it will show me the original data. Here we will see a lot of the metrics that were used and calculated, and then we will also see a histogram. What I'm going to do is be able to copy, and I'm going to highlight and copy the area starting with cell D3, holding down my left mouse button and dragging, and go down to I14. I'm then going to right click and choose copy. To make this a little bit easier, we're going to copy some of this data onto the test tab. So we'll start in the same area, D3. Cell D3 is where we will start. I will right click and I'm going to choose the first paste option, which is just to paste. This data is going to be the same as what we had from before, so we are going to utilize the same setup. However, we will make some adjustments as we go along. I will double click here on the column dividers to resize the data, and if needed, always click and drag to be able to read this more appropriately. I'm then going to go ahead and highlight the numbers that we have for the IV metrics, number of jumbo rolls, and probability. I'm going to center them. And then down here at the bottom, I also would like to center the total number of jumbo rolls and the total probability as well. The total can be left alone and is most of the time left aligned, or it could be right aligned, whichever that is preferred. For this, I'm going to actually I'm going to highlight cell from cell E4 down to cell F12, and I'm going to hit the delete key on my keyboard to clear those cells. By going through and clicking out of the cell, then I can go ahead and write a formula in cell E4, and we're going to utilize a function to count how many jumbo rolls have an IV metric of 19. By doing so, I'm going to type equals, and I will use the count if formula or function to write our formula. Double clicking on count if, it is going to look for a range, and then it is looking for criteria. So the first thing we need to do is select a range. I will click on cell B2, holding down my left mouse button, I will drag down until I reach cell B51, which holds the 50th jumbo roll IV metric. While I have this here, I'm going to press F4 on my keyboard to turn it into an absolute cell address. The reason why is because as I copy this formula down, I want to make sure I'm pulling from the same range every time. Pressing the comma key on my keyboard, I then shift over to the criteria. So the criteria I'm looking for is if there is a 19 in the cell. So I will type 19, and then I can hit enter. This says there are 0 jumbo rolls with that IV metric. So if I scroll down through and look, doing a quick visual inspection, I don't see any of those with a number 19 IV metric. But if I want to go ahead and check for the others, I'm going to apply this formula by clicking in the bottom right hand corner till my cursor turns to a black plus sign, holding down and dragging until I get down to this last one. All of them will say 0 because if I click in cell E5, I will see that they all are seeing a criteria. They're all pulling from the same range, which is what we wish, but we're not going through and getting the right criteria. So I'm going to go ahead and take out 19. We'll put 20, and I'm going to continue down through the cells by changing the criteria. I can click in the formula bar at the top to continue to set my cursor and do this very quickly. As I do so, once I press enter, the formula should update and we will see the new updated values. Total, we will see there are 50 jumbo rolls, which is how many jumbo rolls are in this test data set. And then I will go through and find what is the probability. I'm going to write a simple formula to do this as well. I will type equals. I will click on cell E4. I will type backslash, and then I want, in this case, the value to always be divided by cell E13, or the total number of jumbo rolls. To make sure that I keep this, I'm going to use an absolute cell address. Typing a $sign by holding down Shift and pressing the number 4 on the keyboard. Capital letter E for the column. Another $sign. And then looking at the cell reference, which is E13. I could also have selected the cell and pressed the F4 key to do the same operation. Hitting enter will get a probability of 0. From here I can drag and apply the formula to the rest of the cells. This will now go through and populate, and we will see it will continue down, so the next one will pull from E5, but yet it always pulls from cell E13. This will have a total value of having 50 jumbo rolls and a probability of 100%, or 1.0. We can go ahead and get rid of the cells here, so I'm going to highlight these 3 cells, right click and choose delete. I'm going to shift the cells up and say OK. And I'm going to get rid of the 27 as well by doing the same operation and shifting the cells up. So that way when they're deleted, those cells go into place. You'll notice it does not impact the formulas by deleting those cells. Over in the mean, I'm going to make sure that, again, I'm finding the average. The average is from cell B2 to B51, which is our exact range. And our sample standard deviation is B2 to B51, which again can be applied using various formulas. So, or can be reverse engineered by looking at the formulas in the cells. For the mean, if I right click on the cell and we are wanting just to demonstrate the mean as having a whole rounded to a whole number, I'm going to click on Format Cells. From here I can choose number, and I'm going to choose to put down to 0 decimal places, which will round this to 23. So our mean value for the IV metric would be 23, which means that we have the majority of them, and we can tell from our statistical data that that is true. The majority of our rolls have an IV metric of 23. To do the last portion with the histogram, we're going to make sure to load in something called the Analysis Toolpack. So I'm going to go up to File. I'm going to go down to Options. And on the left side of the Excel Options dialog that shows up, I choose Add-ins. And down at the bottom, you will make sure it says Manage Excel Add-ins and click Go. From there, we will make sure the Analysis Toolpack is checked inside of the dialog box, and we will choose OK. From here, I can go to the Data tab. At the very end of the ribbon, we should find an Analysis panel with a Data Analysis option. If I click on Data Analysis, another dialog box will load asking what type of statistical tools that I would like to use. I'm going to scroll down, and alphabetically I can find histogram from the options. I'll say OK. Then I will be looking for the input range. So on this, and here I can type this in, or if I press this button I can select it, select my input range, which is my IV metrics from each one of the roles I should say, and I can go ahead and click here to do so. The bin range is then going to go through and be used, so I'm going to select the bin range by using the IV metrics that are below. So I can highlight the IV metrics from our statistical data. And then I'm going to go ahead and choose an output range. I'm going to click the radio button next to output range and then select a cell where I would like this to start. Cell D14 would work just fine, or some similar cell that would give it enough room. Last part is I will check chart output. Then I will choose OK. The histogram will then generate and allow us to see what are the different types of IV metrics that we have per the data. For this case, a bin and frequency legend is then created, and you will see that a more row is here noted, and it matches with that. With the exception of the more row, it matches the metrics that we calculated before. This gives you an indication that we have the correct data and it is all organized correctly. I'm going to go ahead and hit delete on the more row. We can then shift the cells upward, and that will update the histogram. Here, since the histogram is part of the data, we can select it and we can actually cover up this frequency table, and we can always resize as well. Some things we'll do for the histogram are going to be, we can get rid of the frequency being noted. Down at the bottom, instead of having a bin, we can go ahead and choose IV metric as our label. And at the histogram, we can type in IV data histogram. The last portion that would go through and allow us to edit our chart is when I select the chart, I can go up here to under chart tools, I can choose design, and under some of the options I can use chart, add to chart element. Some other add chart element options that might be beneficial would be some things such as grid lines. Primary major horizontal will allow you to, when you select it, we'll put in major horizontal grid lines into our histogram. The other option to match would be to select one of the bars, right click, and choose to format the data series. From here, we can set a gap width of 0%, or typical histogram spacing is about a 5% gap on histograms. Work just fine. Closing that format data series, I'm able to then go through and finish the histogram. This will go through and allow us to communicate some of the data of those IV metrics